And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a card game, and it's going to be a press your luck card game. Not usually my style of thing, but this is UG from Calliope Games. It's going to be a game in which you're flipping cards out, trying to collect sets of cards with the highest numbers while still trying to avoid losing other cards from your area in order to keep them and eventually score points with them. So real quick, we'll take a look at what you get inside that small box and how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and get my final opinions on it. Here you can see the components for UG, and basically this is a card game, and it's very much so a press your luck card game. You have a deck of cards with 3 different colors of cards in it. You can see there are orange cards, there are green cards, and there are purple cards. And then there are also going to be bad cards that are called UG cards, which you don't want to get most of the time. It's not always bad if you get them, but most of the time it will be bad. Each player starts with no cards, and you're just going to have this deck of cards, and the first player in the game, who will be the youngest player, is going to flip a card from the top of this deck. And at the beginning of the game, you must flip a card because there are no cards available in what you will call the 3 safety piles, which don't exist yet. But the first player will flip a card, and they have a purple 3. Now, they can decide either to take this purple 3 or to continue flipping cards into the next safety pile. Maybe they don't want a purple 3. Now, 3s are pretty good. The cards range from 1 to 5, with more 1s in each color than there are 2s, and more 2s than there are 3s, more 3s than 4s, and only 1 5 in each color. So 3 wouldn't be so bad, but maybe they decide to keep flipping anyway. And they flip and they have another purple 3. Well, we've already decided we don't want a purple 3. They can flip another one into the 3rd safety pile. So they flip their 3rd card and they have a green 2. Now here they have a choice. They can take any one of these 3 cards, since they flipped a card already, or they can flip one more and then they have to take it. But maybe they're deciding now, okay, 3, 3, 2, I don't want to press my luck anymore. I like one of these cards. I'm going to take this purple 3 and I'm going to put it into my area, which is called my zone in front of me here. And I'm saving this for later, trying to make sets of cards. Now at this point, since I have taken a card and I have not yet flipped an UG card, I can decide to lock sets, which would be one of each color. I don't have one of each color, so I can't lock any sets. And at this point, I would pass play to the next player, who can then either take any one of the face-up cards or start flipping cards themselves. They could flip the top card, and it would go in the first area, covering up that 3. So now we have a green 2. And they already had a choice of a green 2, so they flip another card. And it's an orange 1. Now, 1s are kind of good to have because there are those UG cards that will make you discard cards from your area in front of you. So maybe they decide to take this 1 and keep it for now, just in case they get hit later. It's always a good idea to collect some 1s because you will lose cards throughout the game. And once they've taken their cards, they could lock any sets that they have if they wanted to, up to 1. They don't have any, so they're going to continue on to the next player who would flip a card. And they'd place it into the first area. They have a 1. And they flip another 1. And then they flip a 5. Well, they're pretty likely to take that 5. So they're going to pull that off and take it to their own area. And the next player again would go, flipping a card. We got a 2, and a 2, and a 1. And maybe they decide to press their luck at this point, and they draw another card. Well, they got a wild. Now, this is a special type of card. The wild, and this is the all-color wild, will allow you to steal a card of any color, in this case, from any other player that hasn't been yet locked. So maybe they really like this 5. They're going to go ahead and discard this card and steal this 5 from another player. Rather than using the wild card to steal a card, they could simply place it into their own play area, and then it would count as 1 lower than whatever the highest card is, or sorry, whatever the lowest card is in that set later on. After that was done, you would continue on with play, and you would go ahead and the next player would start flipping their cards, but eventually you're going to come across UG cards, like this one right here. This one simply ends your turn, and it would get discarded, your turn would end. But some of them, let's flip through here for a while, are going to have things like this, -1. If you were to flip this and it wasn't the first card of your turn, if you flip one of these as the first card of your turn, you simply set it aside and you get 3 points for it later. But if you had been pressing your luck by flipping more and more cards, let's say you flipped a 3, and then you flipped this card, it's going to go off. And what happens is you're going to have to discard as many cards as it shows on here from your supply. So this one says -1. That card would get discarded, but you also have to discard 1 card from the supply of cards that you've taken in front of you, which is why it's a good idea to have those 1 cards in front of you. So if you don't have any 1 cards, let's say it's this player here, I now have to discard either this 3 or this wild. Well, the wild's not quite as good as the 3, except for it can be any color. So maybe I discard my wild card, and I continue on. Now, there are some that are significantly worse than -1 card. We have some, for example, again, like I said, just end the turn. There's another -1, but more -1s. This one is a -3. You have to discard 3 cards from your pool. So if you've amassed a pool and you haven't locked the cards, it's -3. One of them is a card that forces you to discard 1 of each color card that you have in your supply. So this says lose 1 orange, 1 green, 1 purple, and then 1, I guess, wild if you have 1 in your supply as well. So if you press your luck for too long, you may come across one of those UG cards, and it's going to force you to discard cards that you've had. Now, as I said, at some point after one of your turns, you're going to have 1 of each color card. Let's say that this player here has amassed these 3 cards here. We have a 2, a 1, and a 3, and they decide to lock these together as a set on their turn. When you go to score at the end of the game, this will be worth the multiplied values of these cards. So 3 times 2 times 1 is 6. It'd be a little bit better if this was a 2. We'd have 3 times 2 times 2 is 12. So that's going to double your points. And the better cards you have, the better you're going to do in terms of points. But pressing your luck to get those higher value cards will likely lead you into UG cards, making you lose cards, which you should hopefully be protecting with 1 or 2 value cards in your area. The game is going to continue in this manner with each player flipping the cards and choosing the card they want until you exhaust this deck. The player who exhausts the deck before they flip their last card is going to go ahead and allow everyone else to make any more sets that they have in their area before they flip that last card. Then, when they flip the last card, as long as it's not an UG card, they have 1 more chance to take cards and lock any cards in their area. And after the game is done, whoever has the most points by having the best locked sets worth the most points, and the most of those UG cards drawn on the first flip of a turn for 3 points each, whoever has the highest value with all of those combined is going to be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is UG by Calliope Games. A very easy to learn game, and one that originally I didn't really think had a whole lot of strategy to it. And I'm still not going to go out there and say that this is a deep strategy game. It's not a deep strategy game. It is very much so a push your luck game. But I think in my initial plays through it, I might have missed a little bit of a strategy that you can use. Now again, this is not a deep strategy, but there is definitely something to be said for picking up 1 and 2 cards, protecting yourself. It may be a game you have to play in shifts a little bit. Early game trying to pick up a lot of 1 and 2s, while late game, even when you're hitting UG cards, discarding the 1 and 2s and keeping the 3s and 4s, the 5s in order to score points. Now, again, there's not a lot of strategy there. Yes, you want to protect yourself by having low cards so that when you have to discard cards, you can keep the high cards. That makes a lot of sense. Now, if you know the in-depth layout of the deck, that there's, 11 1s and 8 2s and 4 3s and a couple of 4s and 1 5, it's easier to plan out what's available in the deck. But I don't know if you're going to get a lot of players who are going to give that kind of dedication to a simple card game like this. There may be a subset of people out there that will do it. I'm not sure if I'm one of them. As a matter of fact, I know I'm not one of them, but that doesn't mean that the game's not for anyone. There's also a variant for smaller kids or for people who don't like the high amount of UG cards in the game. You can remove some of them. It will make it for a higher scoring point game. A little bit easier, a little bit less harsh on those who don't like losing cards all of the time. But that option is out there. So if this sounds like something interesting to you, check out UG from Calliope Games.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.